Welcome to the Warrior Mindset Podcast, where each week we interview individuals that kind of embody that intense mindset, that warrior mindset that enables them to get through their trials and tribulations, of life. But what it means to be a warrior doesn't necessarily mean to be a physical warrior. It can be somebody that is that soccer mom. It can be that business person, somebody who from day one understands that the mindset is to, build and forge forward, in their lives. Like I said, you don't have to be that physical warrior. You don't have to be jumping a tall building in a single bound. But what it does is we're interviewing individuals that have that intensity in their life to become successful in one fashion or another. With that being said, my name is Dr. Joe Martin, and I am the host of the Warrior Mindset Podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Max Garces, real good friend of mine, probably, he was over 10 years.
About 10 years.
Yeah, about 10 years or so. He's a first responder, been in the police department. He'll give us some of that information. A police officer for many years, retired now from the police department, but working with, the
DA's office.
The DA's office right now. But Max, just real quick, just a little introduction to our folks out there. Just some of your background, where you came from, first of all, where you've traveled over the years. We've got about 12 year difference. And some of your roads to where you are today.
Oh, well, just briefly, I grew up here in Fresno, and worked my way through school, went to high school here, joined the military, joined the Marine Corps.
What was your high school?
Hoover High School.
Hoover High School.
Yeah, went to Hoover High School. 1 year at Edison High School, and then 3 at Hoover High School. And grew up here with, I've got 5 brothers. So,
started off as a warrior really soon.
Yeah, that's a quick way to fight your way through. But,
where were you in the mix of that with the brothers?
Second oldest.
Second oldest.
Yeah.
So you did a little bit of beat down to some of your younger brothers.
Yeah, yep. I got some of it and got to hand some down.
Hand some down too.
But I grew up. So that was growing up in obviously interesting way. With all boys, it's fun. And a lot of fighting, playing war, and doing all that boy stuff.
Did was your dad a big part of it too? Like with the boys?
Not in the play area, but most of it, he was a farm labor worker. So it was kind of like, all right, round up the boys and let's go work. So we did a lot of working.
So, that mindset right away, your dad gave it to you from, hey, listen, we got to work hard. Mm-hmm. If we want to make some money, you want anything extra in life, that he's putting you guys to work, huh?
Oh, yeah. And vacation was all right. Time to earn your money for school's closed. So we're going to work all summer.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a summer vacation.
Do you think from back in the day, you growing up in that type of mindset, mine was really similar too, is if you want something, you better earn it. I'm back east delivering newspapers in the snow, and things like that, where your dad was like, hey, listen, if you want something, you got to earn it. Do you think that that mindset's changed a little bit in our society nowadays?
It seems to be given, not so much earned lately. At least it seems like to me. But back then, especially with five kids, and you work in the fields, there's not a lot of extra money to give away for the fun stuff. So it's like you got to basically earned your basics. Did
you like in my life, we had a lot of that hand-me-down stuff, whether it was from older cousins, boys, and things like that. And was that one of those things too with your family too? When because I was very really, for the most part, low middle class. Didn't have a lot of money. We had to earn everything. You guys have to do a lot of that hand-me-down stuff along the way too.
There was a little bit of that, but I say there wasn't because when you buy clothes, to last you the whole year. By the time that year's done, your shoes, your clothes are, there's not much left to hand down.
Yeah. The sneakers become sandals.
Yeah. There's when I think about that and people tell those stories like, hey, well, you hand down things down. I can't remember a lot of hand-me-downs, and I say that because I just, by the time you were done with it, there was not much left.
Worn to the last thread.
Yeah.
When you were growing up like that, were you all the boys, were you guys athletes? Growing up?
Most of us, yeah. Most of us were either played football or wrestled.
Most of those too.
Yeah.
And did are the boys close enough where you guys would ever be in high school together?
Oh yeah, no, we were all within a year apart. We were
No way.
year to 2 years apart. So it was like, I think when I was in high school, my oldest brother was a senior. Well, I have an older brother, but he was already older and out of the house.
Right.
But so my older brother, he was a senior, I was a junior, and then my other brother was a freshman.
Oh, man.
But at one given time, we were all three of us were in.
Did you guys all wrestle? Like we're in the wrestling team? Did you ever wrestle in the same?
Yeah, that year we
Same
were.
team?
That year, no. Actually, my youngest brother was on the freshman team, but we all did wrestle because my brother was a senior. Then and I was in varsity too, so him and I were both varsity together. And then my youngest one was a freshman team.
When you got out and let the audience know, you went into the military, but you spent your time in the what?
In my active duty time, or the Marine Corps?
Yes, the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
See, myself as a Navy guy, I always got to, got the Marine Corps in here today. So, we got to give a little banter back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
What made you decide, like, from branch point of view? Was it one of those things you go into the recruiter, which a lot of people have told me over the years, I just went into the recruiter, I picked this door.
Yeah.
Was there anybody in your past, a relative along the way that says, Max, listen, if you're going to the military, you're going to the Marine Corps?
No, not really. I mean, I did talk to all three of them at the time. Was
you did?
Army, Navy, Army, Navy, and then Marine Corps. And, I
Save the best for last.
Yeah. Well, I think I bought into some of the
rah-rah?
some of the rah-rah, and they're the best and the toughest and this and, the hardest way to go. And, I went for it.
And then when did you go in?
In 1989.
1989.
Boot camp was in 1989.
Yeah, so you were going in right. Got out of boot camp and whatever. It was right at Desert Storm, right?
Desert Storm was more 91.
Oh,
yeah,
Desert
I think 1991.
91. That's right. Yeah, right after that. So you had already probably went through schooling and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I joined the reserves. And one of the main reasons was at the time was I was still interested in finishing up school.
Yeah.
So I joined the Marine Corps Reserves. And you know how reserves work. Basically, you go to boot camp, you go to school, you do everything active duty people do, except for instead of going off to your duty assignment, you just come back home and then go your 1 week in a month.
Right.
So I came back and then got re-enrolled back into school.
Nice. And then where'd you finish? Fresno State?
No, actually, at the time I was just going to Fresno City College.
Oh, okay.
So went there until Desert Storm started up in 91. Or actually, I think by the time I was activated, it was 1992.
Oh, check. And then how long did you get activated for?
3 months.
Like 3 months? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was like we talked kind of off camera before. It didn't really last too long.
Yeah, it didn't last long. I mean, it was just one of those things where we were going to be, that second wave or cleanup, whatever it was going to take, and
none of any of that.
No, I think we got ready 5 or 6 times, packed everything up, got ready to go, and just to get told,
yeah, exactly, you're
stand
going
down,
home.
and then
exactly
got ready again the next week, stand down. So it was one of those. For about a month there, we were gonna go, not gonna go, gonna go. That kind of thing. So
yeah, there's a lot of just from a typical history, you got a lot of Vietnam vets, right? And then I was in from 78 to 84, right? And not a lot Grenada, little stuff going on in like El Salvador and Nicaragua and all that. So I was in at that time, not a lot going on, ton of training, ton of deployments with the teams, but always a bridesmaid, never a bride, and then when I got out, went to college just like you did, and in 1990 I graduated as a doctor, and then you're in, then Desert Storm, and was thinking about going back in, but I'm already a doctor, and so my life had changed down the road, and then like for example for yourself, 1991, and nothing really happened for 10 more years, and even after 9/11, it took maybe 2 years before people really deployed, yeah. So there's kind of we use that term, the tweeners, between a lot of the stuff. When you finally got out, what made you kind of like think, okay, well, I'm gonna do this 6 years, in the reserves? Was that just your deployment contract?
Yeah, that was my contract.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you got done,
by then I was already a cop. I was already a police officer up in Northern California.
Yeah.
So while I was a reserve.
Oh, you're going through the academy during that time. Gotcha.
Yeah, actually, I got into the academy after Desert Storm. After we got back, kind of worked out pretty well because you're able to save up some money. You don't go anywhere. You're sitting there on base. You're stuck on base and getting paid wartime pay. So I was able to come back and then use that money to put myself in the academy. And I worked part of the time that I was there, but at least you can afford to live and and go to school.
And were you married at the time?
No.
When you went through the academy? Not then.
No.
Not then. It was after that, yeah.
Yeah, so I put myself through the academy after I got back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you think about the foundation, and we talk about that foundation, that warrior mentality and that mindset. You had a pretty good foundation starting off. I mean, you started off with, the brothers, causing havoc against each other, having to work hard as an individual. Your dad instilled upon that. The military, obviously, for both of us, I think it gave us really good foundations on who we are. And like we said earlier on, we've known each other for like 10 years or more, but that foundation is there. So it's like that brick and mortar of our lives and how we're kind of building who we are as individuals. When you got out of the academy, how much time did you do in Sacramento, the Sacramento area?
Oh, I was up there for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then from that point of view, like before you moved down towards the Central Valley, were you moving up the ladder there, or were we just patrol at the time, or
over there?
Any special duties?
Over there, I went to a smaller agency, and I'll tell you the advantage to going to a smaller agency is you get to do a lot of different things.
Right.
It's not just you're not so specialized where you go into one thing and you become that
guy, right?
Yeah, and with the smaller agency too, what the advantage was that you had to do everything. I mean, when I started, which was back in when I got back, so 92. Actually, no, yeah, I think I got my years wrong. So I was back in 90 at the end of 91. So I must have been deployed in 90. I must have been activated in 91.
Yeah.
So at the end of 91 is when I got done with the academy and got hired at the end of 1991, December 1991.
Also, you did 10 years. Came back to the Valley here in 2001, somewhere in that range.
So that agency, when you started, you did traffic collisions, you did investigations, and the investigations you did from beginning to end, unless it was something major like a murder.
Oh,
So,
wow.
you had a robbery, you had a rape, you were doing the entire investigation, you were doing search warrants, you were doing the whole bit, and collecting evidence, doing all those things. So you got a good foundation of just learning how to be a basic police officer. And I say basic, actually, nowadays it's probably more than basic.
Did that kind of bode well for you as an individual? So then when you came down to Clovis, Fresno, county area, do you think that bode well for you when you got hired on down here?
Yeah, because Clovis was very similar. Same thing when I got here, which was, over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Same thing. You handle those things as a street cop. It's not someone else's responsibility. It's your call, your case. You handle it. Of course, something major. Same thing here. Something major happens. You get more specialized people in, but overall, it was very similar.
And so you went from California City to a California City. Was there any type of, for some of the people out there, maybe transfer, they go, oh, I went to a different state and I had to go through another academy. You didn't have to do that here, right?
No, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah,
Because you went to California, right?
Yep.
But going out of state, sometimes you may have to, is that because of codes and processing? What would make somebody, if they went to a different state, to have to go to another academy?
Yeah, the whole thing is that there's each state has their own
protocols,
their own standards. Here it's POST, Peace Officer Standards and Training.
Right.
That's the California POST.
Gotcha.
And then Arizona have theirs, Nevada will have theirs. So yeah, whenever you switch, you've got to basically get recertified.
Right.
Somewhere
and
else.
Once you're here, I mean, obviously California's California, so it was the same. So your transition here wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the department here, and I've known you for a long time, I mean, is there any one duty, if you will, or job duty that you had that you really thought was like the best for you?
Yeah. Here there were a couple. And I mean, one was, I was a hostage negotiator for a while. And
cool.
we call it crisis negotiations because most of the time you're not dealing with a hostage situation.
Yeah.
I think most of the time it's someone in crisis or there's an issue. And also investigations. I spent 4 years here as a detective. And those were, great years, good cases, kept me busy, great team to work with. Those things were real fun. That was a good time.
And is that one of those things where, in that, so the different departments, like, was it like, say, for example, homicide, and then you have auto, or as a detective, you've got to run all of them because we're a smaller town?
Same thing with the small town here as it was. I was a detective in when I was working in Northern California. I was in Woodland up there. And same thing there where you were technically, you you're a general investigator. You know, if you're on call that day and someone dies, it's your case.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you've got to be pretty well rounded. And same thing. It was the same in Clovis as it was there. Just I would call it generalist.
Mm-hmm. And then because I know you and your family, you have 2 girls, and awesome daughters. I've known them since they were young. What do you think you've instilled upon your girls? I mean, these girls are badass. To your girls over the years with that warrior mindset that you grew up with, because you had, not necessarily saying strict, but you had standards, your dad put upon you, the boys. There's standards that the boys have where they're beating up on each other and whatever. The military definitely has standards that that brick and mortar again. What do you think from your background that you've instilled upon your girls that's, in my opinion, knowing them, that they're going to be hugely successful? I mean, what are some of the things that you think you've given them?
Well, I think not always so much what I've given them, but more like what I haven't, which is sometimes just better for dad to be quiet, because boys communicate differently, and like you said, boys communicate with their fists, and we had a problem, we just
outside,
we'd and not that we got into fist fights, but
you wrestle around them.
Yeah, exactly. It was more of a all right, let's go, toughest, king of the mountain wins, that kind of thing. So, when it comes to the girls, a lot of things for me were just, sometimes you just need to, you can't go Marine Corps on them. You can't say something, harsh.
Yeah.
You can't go cop on them. I mean, there's just certain things,
but you got some tough girls, man. I'm sure there's been times when, you had to kind of put your foot down a little bit, but I mean, you had the girls they're dynamite.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those where you have to know at what point, it's time now. And, usually, but it took a while, it takes a while. And a lot of it was just, when it got to that point where it was time to just say, hey, I get it. I understand, but it's time to just suck it up.
Exactly.
What's you're either going to suck it up or make a different choice. Which is it going to be? And usually at that point, after a few of those, then they realize, okay, I know what what's dad going to say?
And do you think, I kind of know the answer because I know you pretty well. Do you think with the way society is, that you feel pretty proud of your girls with the way they live their lives?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're one, first of all, they're very smart, they're very smart, and they're able to think things out and, make decisions. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is just making decisions. Yeah. They're going to make mistakes. We all do. Yeah. But I think the toughest part is, do something, do something. And that's the big thing. Make a choice, make a decision, live with it and work with it.
Have there ever been any times like in your career, when I talk to some of the guests on the show, we talk about forks in the road, and we'll start like earlier on in your life. Earlier in your life, you're working hard. Your dad takes you out to the field. Hey, listen, summertime's coming. We're all going to help out. You want to, get some money for school clothes and whatever. You're going to come out to the field. Is there, like, say for example, we'll ask a couple levels of questions. Is there individuals that not obviously your mom and dad, but is there an individual that a crossroad took when you were like a young guy and go, man, if I went this direction, it could be totally different? Where an individual in your life, like an uncle, a friend, of whatever, this is, no, Max, we're going to kind of go in this direction. This is probably better off. Have you ever have any like issues like that where could have went awry?
I could honestly say that, when you grow up, first of all, you grow up in a big family, there's not always, and a lot of it's based around, working.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot of time to talk, and my dad was a great man, but he was also, didn't talk a lot, and a lot of it was work.
Just get it done.
Yeah, get it done. So those conversations, I wouldn't say they'd happen. I mean, it's just something, inside. Yeah. Well, I take that back. Even through school, a lot of the encouragement was maybe through school and through, getting to college or getting a good job and those kind of things. So, those kind of things were the ones that stuck in my head. So It was, I'll give you an example is, when I turned 16, like, well, now you can get a real job, So to me, it's either go work in the fields for very low wages, or go work, even though it was minimum wage, it still was, better and better hours. I went to McDonald's. So to me, McDonald's was a step up, you know? So, first chance I got, okay, well, how about this, Dad? I'm going to go work at McDonald's and I'm going to give you my entire check, and I would much rather do that than here. Because that's just the way we worked. I mean, all the money went to the family, the family, so.
And everybody got dispersed.
Yeah, exactly.
As you need it.
So I was more than happy to do that. So the first chance I got.
Air conditioning in the summer.
Exactly. It's time, okay, let's, when McDonald's is a step up, that was.
Was there an individual that influenced you to go into the military?
Not really, no.
It's just one of your, really?
One of those things, I mean, you grow up watching, maybe it was the TV. Yeah, you grow up watching, the John Wayne as a Marine, and you grow up watching, watching the cowboy movies, and you just sit there and watching the war movies and kind of glorify that kind of thing. So, you wonder what it's like, And if anything, I always ask myself, well, I don't know what it's like, and I can ask people, and I think I'm sure I did ask people here, friends, uncles, and those kind of things. Not necessarily my uncles, but friends, dads, and things that were in the military. But I could never get the experience just from someone telling me.
Did any of your brothers join?
No,
you're the only one.
Yep.
Yeah, I got two brothers, and I was the only one too. I had from an influential point of view. That's why I asked you: was there any individuals that kind of geared you towards the military? I had an uncle that was a submariner, so he was Korean War in the old diesel, the diesel submarines. And then my dad's best friend, which and we've all had those type of friends of families that become the uncle or the aunt that really aren't blood relatives, but he was a Vietnam Marine. And so I had two influential people, kind of guide me. So my my reason for going into the military, because my grades weren't the best. So I could have got a D2, D3 scholarship for soccer, but my grades weren't getting me there. So the military was the best thing for me. Grades were decent for you. Like, I mean, you could have,
Yeah, actually, grades were really
that easy for you.
Yeah, they were real easy. I could have gone straight to college right out of high school. But it's one of those things where I didn't want to go anywhere, so I stayed here, tried the city college route for a while. That didn't work out very well. Just too distracted. Just going out and doing other things other than going to class.
Yeah. That you do as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. So and from there, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not paying attention. I'm not focusing. I need something else in it. But I still want to go to school. So I ended up, because of back then the GI Bill and those kind of things. I thought, this to me is something I wanted to do. I wanted to go to school, and I also wanted to go to the military. So to me, it was the best of both worlds. It's like let's do this reserve route. Let's try this.
Did you finish 4 years?
No. I finished two. Yeah.
Right, and then went to the academy and things like that.
It was kind of a combination because the academy is actually worth, at the time, I don't know what it's worth now, but it was worth almost 40 credits. So,
oh my God, yeah.
40 community college credits.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was all in one. Mm-hmm. So, and I was able to use GI Bill back then for that.
Right. It's funny because those GI Bill, just talking with individuals, and obviously the medical field is a chiropractor and injury preventions and all this type of stuff, and obviously treat a lot of veterans. And it's kind of interesting because you have like post-Vietnam type of GI Bill. You have, 76 to, the middle 80s was a different program. I can't keep track of all this type of stuff, on how that helps. But matter of fact, on that note, that the veterans benefits of being in the military, your kids got to go to, state school here in Fresno State, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. So cover for both of them. So there's those benefits, a lot of benefits that I wasn't aware of back then, that you end up, getting later on. And it's a good thing. They're taking care of veterans a lot better nowadays, which is,
I think so
awesome,
too.
Which is awesome.
Everything could always be better in every industry, but, myself too, obviously I get some of the benefits also. Mm-hmm. And my youngest two are still, finishing up on the youngest is going to college, but the middle one is still using the benefits as much as possible too. So I think, that definitely does help.
Oh yeah.
So from your military experience, what do you think the benefit that you personally got? We'll start there because I want to ask another question on the police department, aspect of it. what do you think you gained from your time in the military?
For me, it was get the job done. And that's huge, and I'm sure it's in every branch. But it's you have a job to do, and you do it.
And what was yours? What was your MOS?
My MOS was 3521, which is a diesel mechanic.
Oh, diesel. Oh, yeah. Nice.
The interesting about obviously, and other Marines will understand, the basic concept back then was every Marine's a rifleman.
Yeah.
So we spent...
The 0311?
Yeah. We spent most of our time doing field training than turning a wrench.
Yeah.
And I think that's just maybe back then was the nature of the reserves was, you might have a bunch of mechanics, but there's not that many trucks to work on. So guess what we're going to do for the weekend?
You're humping it like everybody else.
Yeah, we're over on the coast humping hills,
Shooting.
playing war games.
Yep.
So that's why it's even though you say that MOS, it's kind of funny. But then when we were activated, then we were back into the shop
in
again,
the motor
because
pool, right?
in the motor pool, because now you actually have a job and you're more of a mainstream, active. You're at some point we had to take over the 2nd Land Battalion there in Yuma, so we ended up basically sitting into their spot while they deployed.
Right.
And then so at that point, we're back to what your job's supposed to be. So
did you think about because we both weren't in time of a lot of stuff going on. Did you think about re-upping it all?
No.
Yeah,
No. By the time I was done with my reserve commitment,
you were already in the police department.
I was already in the police department.
That's right.
I was already in the police department. Career's going. I was already married.
Yeah.
And the one thing I can tell you that when Desert Storm did come, the group that I was with was most of us. Obviously, most of us were single. I didn't have a girlfriend.
Right.
I had part-time job. I was going to school. So when that came around, it was you're ready.
Yeah, it was rah-rah.
Yeah,
right.
it's let's do this. That type of thing. And I think it was back then. You don't understand it, but you had the older guys that had families and all, and I can imagine how hard that was. So 6 years down the line, or 5 years, 5 years up the road, when it was time to re-up, I had every understanding that it can happen.
Right.
And by then I had a career. By then I had a wife, and I thought, know what, okay,
no kids yet. Then
no
right?
kids
no
yet.
Kids yet.
Yeah. So I made that decision that it would disrupt what I already had going on too much, so I did not re-up.
Well, it's funny because and a positive thing, because you went from the Marine Corps doing 6 years in there, and serving our country like we both had, and but then you kind of flipped it over and did 20 something as a police officer.
Well, if you can include what I'm doing now, which is still a sworn officer, I'm into my 34th year.
Yeah, 34 years. Yeah, and still counting.
Yeah, still counting. So
what's your obviously you have times when things aren't going right, and that happens in the first responder industry. But what are some of your really positive things that you feel you've gotten out in 34 years? Like being in a in a community service type of job.
Well, for me, it's because I'm on the tail end of it, so I'm not out there on the street anymore. I'm not pushing a patrol car, so I'm not in the bad weather. So at this point,
you can handle that when you're younger.
Yeah, you can. A lot easier. So I think right now the advantage of my experience helps me do the job that I'm doing now.
Right.
Because I'm an investigator here with the district attorney's office. So. It's what I did in the first 30 years that are helping me do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So it's nicer. It's obviously slower. I'm older.
Yeah.
Think smarter, not harder type of thing.
Right.
Or work harder, or work smarter, not harder.
Was there any like being in the department? Were there times when you said, "Oh man, I could do this job forever"? Because it does ebb and flow, correct? So you'll do a job duty for a certain amount. It's like an enlistment type of thing. You get 4 years with the detectives department, and then rolls into something else. Was there any one job duty that you liked better than the other?
Well, I'll tell you, when I worked in investigations, that was probably the best assignment I ever had. Especially
4 years with that.
I did 2 years when I was in Woodland as a detective, and then 4 years when I was here in Clovis.
Right.
And here in most small agencies, you have to rotate through.
Right.
So after you do so many years, then it's time to rotate back into the
like a typical patrol.
Typical back to patrol, and then there's other specialty assignments.
Is that the main reason? I'm going to guess here. The main reason, so you just don't get complacent. Is it that reason? Like, what would they? If you're doing a great job and you're settling case in there and just gee whiz, Max, man, he really kind of knows what he's doing. He's kind of like honing in on this job, or they just say, hey, listen, we get complacent. Let's run you into another type of program. Then all of a sudden you get your feet wet again and you get excited about a program. Or is there a reason behind that?
I think that could be one of them. That could be one of them. But I think the biggest reason is that organizationally they want the experience to be back on the patrol level.
I got you.
Or back into a supervisor level. So, you get a guy who's been an investigator for a couple of years. And it was the minimum were 2. Maximum of 3, and with the possibility of a 4th option. So what you do is you get officers who have gone in as a detective for 2, 3, or 4 years, and then now they're back on patrol.
Gotcha.
So now first of all, they're better officers. They're also able to show other people. So organizationally wise, I think it made more sense to have people rotate through to have a better foundation.
Right,
Than an officer. So that was the main reason that was done there. But you do see it. You stay in one position too long, you do get stagnant, you get complacent, you get, it's not as exciting, so you're kind of trying to take the easy road. So it does make sense to mix it up a little bit, keep it fresh.
So like in the military, we both spend our time in, and as you move into years, you take certain certifications and things like that, and then you test for, a ranking and whatever. In the police department, do they all work basically the same way? I mean, do you have to rank up, or could you stay a patrol officer without investigation jobs or this or that? Or in a small department, they're just kind of like they push you up from a rank point of view? Like,
you can
is
stay.
It a choice?
It's a choice.
It is
a choice. Yeah, you can work your way up. You can stay where you're at. You can move around. So it's a choice. Yeah, especially promotion is completely choice.
Completely choice. Now, did you move up? Like, how far did you move up the ladder? Did you ever really want to, sitting in the department head?
Yeah, at Clovis, I retired as a corporal. So that's one level below a sergeant.
Gotcha. And then because I see a ton of first responders that come in here. I think, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it's one of those things where a lot of guys like to be boots on the ground, and they don't want to get into the administrative aspects of it where they're pushing paper. Some individuals like that, and they do a very good job. And in this small town of Clovis, I mean, the individuals that are running every department, that I've seen so far, everybody's done a great job. But then there are certain people that just like to be boots on the ground. Is that the way you probably like most of your career? Yeah,
most of my career I was, and intended on staying that way.
Yeah.
And my biggest desire was to become an investigator, and
fulfilled that.
And I fulfilled that. And after that, the interesting part is, at the time, I actually had applied for a state job as an investigator.
Oh, wow.
But it was right where if you remember back when that first downturn in the economy, that it really took a dump back in,
6, 7?
Yeah, 06, 07, yeah. I was actually on the list, prepared to get hired by the state as a DOJ a special agent. And that's right where that happened.
And they cut those opportunities.
And they laid off people that had been there for up to 7 years. And
wow.
Yeah, so it was which is good. It's good that I didn't leave, because at that point I would have been one of the job. Oh yeah,
you got cut because you're the new guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, even new guys, like I said, back then it was up to about 7 years. Agents that had been there for up to 7 years were getting laid off.
Did you choose as the economy? Because then obviously the economy ebbs and flows, as we all know that. When things did start to get better, did that ever pop back in your mind? Would the opportunity ever come around again?
It did, but by then I had already started promoting. By then I promoted to corporal, and I just saw myself taking a different route.
Yeah.
So that's why at that point it's like, you know what? Life's going good here. I don't have a lot of complaints. Like you said, it's kind of a fork in the road. Which end do you take?
Yep.
But you start heading one way, and sometimes going back.
You can't. It's hard to go back.
Yeah, it's hard to go backwards. Yeah. So no, at that point I just it was kind of that was one direction I was heading. Didn't work out, so let's take this one.
And then with the district attorney's office, how did that one kind of come around to? Were you retired, and then I'm going to look for a part-time job? Or with the retirement was a question of, hey, if you're retiring, we have this opportunity here.
Yeah. Actually,
Was it a flow?
It was a flow. It was basically finish off here and then start at the DA's office. So and then it's one of those retirements, then move on to the DA's office. So I've been there almost 4 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're there all through COVID and everything too, right?
Yeah.
I think you got hired right before that, not too long, within a year. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And then is that one of those things where this is kind of sailing into the sunset type of deal? Is there somebody kind of call you up after this and go, "Hey, Max, we got another job for you"?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's there's options. So it's I just playing it by ear right now. So see where it takes me.
Yeah. Well, you're not 6 feet under, so there's plenty of time to kind of keep going. And you're like I said, we've known each other for a long time, and you're not one of those guys that's really going to just kind of go sit on a rocking chair on a porch somewhere.
Yeah.
You may be traveling and doing all that with the wife, but you're not one of those guys that's going to sit down and become complacent and things like that. If there's anything that you could say to, like, because we've, like you said, not too far apart age-wise, and we've grown up in a society that was a little bit different than it is now. First of all, what would you say to some of these young people out there right now that are kind of, struggling with the way society is, the way, life is, the way people are, and we'll just keep it generic. Like, what would be some of the things that you could give some advice? Obviously, you got younger, kids too. So do I. But what are some of the things that you may think to tell some of the young people along the way, how to navigate, the way life is going?
Mm-hmm. I mean, my biggest thing is just keep trying different things, or try, or stick with what you're doing, work hard. If that's not working out, try something else. I mean, there's still a lot of opportunity, and there's still, as much as we see society going one way or the other, it is what it is, and you have to work with it somehow, but stay true to yourself and go work hard, get out there and go chase it down.
When you see what's going on with society and just the way the walks of life of different people, and we from a different generation will kind of scratch our heads. Where do you just see society going right now? Is it you still kind of shaking your head? Hopefully we come out of this tailspin and nosedive, or like what's your thought on where we're going right now?
I think you have to see for yourself, because every area, every region, every state, even California, Northern California, Bay Area, Central California, coastal towns, Los Angeles, San Diego, every one of those regions is completely different.
Totally different.
And
so you happy where you're at right now?
I'm happy where I'm at
Naming
now.
all those other cities?
Yeah.
Me too.
And the issue with that is sometimes, you have to also filter what you're listening to, because what may be an issue somewhere else, it may not be an issue where you're at. So why make it something?
100% agree.
So, and part of that is traveling and living in other places and understanding how, we're understanding other people's point of view, because it's not the same here as it is over there. And even our own state is so diverse as far as different areas. Go to other states, go to other countries.
Right.
Pretty soon you realize that there's a lot of different aspects and different views and different things out there, and don't get so tunnel vision and so worried about what's, going on in the media, if you want to say.
Yep.
Pay attention to what's really happening around you.
Yeah.
And check other things out.
I think, we're super fortunate. I myself have been fortunate to do a ton of traveling, being deployed a bunch of times in the SEAL team, back in the late 70s, early 80s. I was with a fitness company, for 6 years called TRX, great company, functional, piece of equipment, traveled all over as one of the lead instructors for teaching the military how to use the piece of equipment, and been all over. And going back to the question that I kind of questioned you about, as far as, how do you see society? How do you see our kids growing up? Every day, I thank God every day that I live where I do. And I thank God every day I'm in California. I'm in the valley that I'm at compared to the other areas. But if people, like you said, if they just sat down and they kind of thought to themselves, wow, we really got it good here. They would not complain the way some people do. Some people do complain. From a police officer point of view, because we have all these, things over the last, say, 5-6 years, and my personal opinion is, the police department gets very disrespected. We here at this facility, my studio here is also attached to my gym, and we do a lot of work with the police officers, the military, getting guys and gals ready for the military, guys and gals ready for the fire department, police department. Man, I just see some really, really good people coming out of our training facility to get them ready for the academy. How do you see these young officers dealing with what's going to be coming up in the future? Do you see some changes? I hope I'm going to answer this correctly, is that I think when you were, full-time, say 15, 20 years ago, the respect for the police officers were a little bit different than it is today. Now, could be society, could be media. Did you see a lot of that here in our county?
See, I didn't see a lot of that.
See, the more people I talk to, I agree with you. So you yourself always were respected, it would seem, for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that, and especially here, the people here, and the attitude was you take care of them, they take care of you.
Right.
I mean, you go out there and you provide a service and you do the best you can. And in a lot of ways, it was given back.
Right.
It was given back. So I didn't see a lot of that. And I know back to the same thing when media is portraying how things are happening. And not that it's not happening.
Oh, no,
I know it's happening.
There's bad apples everywhere.
Exactly. But at the same time, I also know that, some officers are treated poorly. And so that's happening. And I know it's happening. But when you look at where you're at and where I'm at and my daily interactions with people, it wasn't like that.
Yeah. So what would be first of all, like, we see a lot of people here because our valley, is very pro police officers, and we do a lot of great training here at our facility to get guys and gals ready for the academy. And I think we have a great police force within Fresno, Clovis, and in Central California. Are there some things that you would suggest, things that you would recommend, things that you would let our young men and women that are going into the police force, what, some advice you would give them as they're just starting off?
My biggest thing is just remember that everyone you're dealing with is someone else's sister, brother, father, mother.
That's great.
And I say that because, you as an officer, after you're an officer for a few years, you'll start hearing the stories from your own family, your own sister or your own brother or your own father, your own mother, who gets pulled over and starts telling you a story about how they were treated. And they're not always upset about what happened to them. They're very upset on how they were treated,
right, and
how they were talked to. So, and even if it was a casual interaction, it could be an enforcement action, it could be a casual thing, but it's how they were treated. So those are one of the things that when I dealt with people, when I talked to them, even if I saw that they were uncomfortable, or even I would take that extra step to have a conversation with them, to listen to what they're really trying to tell you, because many times you're there to handle what you think is important to them.
Right.
And at the end, that's not really what's important.
Right.
So you have to stop and listen a little bit and treat them like they were someone you would know.
That's a really good comment. Would you think that a lot of times when there's an interaction with a civilian, that there was a lot of underlining stuff compared to what you were called out for?
Oh yeah. By the time anyone, like, think about the times that you've ever called a cop.
Yeah.
Call the cops. Think about it. I can think of one time or two times that I've ever had to call the police, for something.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's usually because you're tired of that neighbor making a lot of noise, or you finally had it with this. So there's a lot of underlying things. And you called finally to try to do something because now they're maybe making a lot of noise. But that wasn't what made you mad. What really made you mad was them driving up and down the street fast, or a couple other things. So usually by the time the police are called, there's plenty of underlying issues. So you have to
sift through that, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes just listening, just listen.
Have there been many times in your career, like, knocking on a door, going to we'll use the term disturbance, and all of a sudden it's just like something, the most silliest thing in the world, and then you leave and you're just like thinking to yourself, man, this could have been totally just avoided. We didn't really need to come out to this or anything like that. And
well, and sometimes, and that actually happens, I'd say
a lot of the time.
A lot of times. Yeah. They people call, but again, back to the same thing. It's like, is that really what their issue was? Was it something else? And sometimes people just they want to get heard, and it may not be they want anything done. It may start off that way, but after a while they understand and cool down. And many times they just want to be heard.
Yeah, I think the only, let's see, handful of tickets in my life, speeding tickets, whatever. And half the, most of the time, you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, jeez, Lordy Christmas. It's just like, guy comes over, you're going so fast. Yeah, I really do. I just wasn't paying attention. Thank you very much. And, half the time, a lot of times the guys, most of the people, if you treat them with respect, they're going to give you just as much crap. And they go, yo, bro, do me a favor. Slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, because that's the last thing you guys, want to do too, is, have some interaction with somebody, and have some confrontation. If myself too, when I talk to people about when you have interactions, because we've had so many, and I'm working with you guys and whatnot, it's like, if you can just go in with it, because 99% of the time, it's your own damn fault. I personally think, because many times I've had, it's like, red light, my bad. And I wasn't paying attention. Well, you could have caused a damn accident. I know, my bad. And as long as you kind of own up to it, as far as instead of nowadays, everything is social media, TikTok, this and that, and guys having cameras around. I saw some stuff the other day. It's like people just being obnoxious. Well, excuse me, this is a federal building and blah, blah, blah. I can have a camera here whenever I want, and I can do this. And what happens is that just stirs the freaking pot. You know what I mean? When it's just like, why do you have to do that? You know what I mean? Well, it's my right as a person to film wherever I want. Those type of knuckleheads piss me off.
Yeah.
And I could see where the police officers, I was like, you deal with that every day. I'm seeing it on a damn, on a phone, and you're dealing in real time. I'm like, I'd probably lose my mind.
Yeah, those are the things you just have to block out.
Yeah.
That's the part of society, like you said, that is different, for the new officers that are coming around. It's a common thing. And at this point, we have our own recorders. So it's like, okay,
that's true
go ahead and
too.
record. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
It's become a mute point. It's like, go right ahead. Record what you want. Just stay over there. Stay out of the way.
It's nothing like anything. Oh my God, this is going to go to court and da 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 da. It's like half the time, everybody's like, dude, get a life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the amount of time that you've done with the police department, do you feel that you made some really good impacts? And if you could, well, obviously, hopefully the answer is yes. And if the answer is yes, can you pick one time in your career where you said to yourself, I made a change in somebody? And now it could be a couple, obviously, if you felt you did a pretty good job in your career. But is there one that really sticks out to you that was, man, let me tell you a story about Mary or whatever it is, where you made a change to somebody in their life, and then you may have came across paths and was like, damn, this gal got squared away. Like, is there any one point where you go, man, I remember one time in my career that I made a change with somebody?
I think that it's hard to hold one case, for me, hold one case more important than the others. It's just kind of on a daily basis. It's you treat people right, and
you did many good things.
You don't know how it's going to affect people. That's actually a big part of how treating if you're not always looking for that. Let me treat this one person, right, and try to make a difference with this one person. It's many times it's just treating everybody and making a wider net. Making doing the right thing today. Not because you think it's going to do something better, it's just because it's the right
exactly.
Thing. So,
if you had to, we're going to finish up here pretty soon here. But a question I'd like to ask you is, if you were able to sit down and drink a beer, have lunch with anybody in your lifetime, like somebody you would look up to, say for example, it can be anybody from the past, somebody that's ancient to a family member. Like, is there somebody that you respect or you would like to get some knowledge from or information from or something, or just sit down and have lunch with somebody, grab a beer, in your walk of life, like who would you like to sit down with?
If you want to have a conversation, I mean, there's one conversation I never had, and that was with like my dad. My dad passed away when I was 19.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of in that transition where you go from being the kid to being the adult, and those are conversations I think would have been great to have. It's like, all right, Dad, why were you such a hard ass
on this?
Those kind of things. And I think it would explain certain things, but I think ultimately if one person, that would be the person.
Yeah. And that's kind of profound in the sense that, in your life growing up, and this guy just worked his butt off and was a man of few words, it seems. And then, like you said, that's a transition of, and also too, you're 18, 19 years old, and so you're transitioning from a young guy to an adult, and you didn't sometimes get maybe where you could make the phone call to go, hey, Dad, what would you do in this situation? You kind of, navigated that yourself. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, Max, I just want to tell you, thank you very much. And we'd like to thank Max for being on the Warrior Mindset podcast. Man, it was just cool to really just sit down with you and, just kind of pick your brain. And we've talked over the years too, just on your mindset, your warrior mindset, on who you are, where you came from, where you transitioned through your military police officer, aspect, and now, working with the district attorney's office, and, always trying to, be the best person you can. And then that in my mind is that warrior mindset. And, with that being said, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. And we look forward to, everyone subscribing, to our podcast and looking for more of these type of interviews in the future. So with that being said, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Max, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
All righty.